Alright, so here we are, match 2, Vintage Cube. Interesting hand here, a lot of land. It's very mana heavy, but we can accelerate and get Bramaz out on like turn 2. So even though I don't really want to get mana flooded, I have the port to also slow down my opponent. So I'm thinking of keeping this one. Maybe it's a sketchy keep, but just the fact that we might be able to get Bramaz out quickly is kind of awesome. So I'm going to try for it and just see what happens. I mean, turn 2 Bramaz might win you the game. Of course, when you keep a land heavy hand, what's going to happen? You're going to draw more land. Goes without saying that I would have guessed that would be my draw, but okay, so far so good. One thing I did edit out, my opponent was pretty late coming to the match. You can see that in his time's already down to 17:44. So time could become a consideration if this goes long. All the more reason probably not to keep a hand that isn't fantastic, but I just think there's enough to do with it. We'll see, I guess. So far, just playing black. Our last opponent had a lot of the reanimation pieces, so he's probably not doing that, or at least not very well. Sun Titan's a good draw here, because we will have the land to play it. And here we go, we get Bramaz. Next turn, depending on what we draw, if we draw one of our 3 white mana cards, then we'll play the Plains, but if not, we'll play the port, and we can maybe start messing around with his mana a little bit, is the plan. Eventually we'll get the Sun Titan, so feeling okay, but problem is we are playing against black, so it'll be heavy removal, and if he is able to get rid of our cards, we're in trouble. Plays Maze of Ith, so that's going to mess up our plan a little bit, but what's nice is Bramaz keeps making tokens, so that's pretty awesome, and is one way around the Maze of Ith. And speaking of making tokens, we draw a Spectral Procession, so that was actually pretty huge. So we're just going to be able to go in and attack in with Bramaz. He'll get mazed, of course, but we'll get the 1/1 Cat Soldier that's also attacking. So we're only doing 1 damage here, but it sets us up for potentially more damage in subsequent turns. Also gives us a nice blocker. It's the old Maze of Ith. Now, we also have a pretty interesting dilemma when it comes to Rishadan Port, because we have the option of either trying to be super aggro and tapping down the Maze of Ith, or being less aggressive, a little more grindy, slowing down his mana by tapping that, and then doing less damage. So I think you're going to see as we go forward that plan may go back and forth a little bit depending on the board state. But we're just going to examine each turn and figure out what makes more sense once we get that port out, which next turn we should be able to put out. Also, too, we may want to take the turn off from porting to play the Sun Titan just because it's that good. Well, there you go, Bone Shredder. So that makes things a little more difficult. Obviously, he'll be able to destroy our Bramaz here, which leaves us just with the tokens. So there you have it. So draw Boros Reckoner here. I'm going to play port. Now this was kind of a misplay on my part. This actually whole turn I misplayed. I wasn't paying attention. I think I was doing something else at the same time when I was doing this. But here's where I kind of screwed up. I could have played the Boros Reckoner if I used the green mana to tap down the Ith. And then the second thing I messed up was I should have just attacked with a Vigilance Creature. I had forgot that the Bone Shredder had flying. So he ends up killing one of my Spirit tokens, which was probably relatively unnecessary. If I was going to just do that, I should have just either not attacked or attacked with the Vigilance Creature as well and got another point of damage in. So yeah, I kind of punted that turn, but Not that it killed us or anything. They were very subtle, small things, but those subtle, small things add up over a period of time. That's how you lose games. So yeah, it was not the greatest turn on my part there. Now he plays really a fantastic card in this cube. This can really slow down a lot of your big creatures and stuff. This wrecks havoc with some like show and tell style decks. They can't get their big creature across around this 1/1 Death Toucher that just keeps coming back. So it's a really good. Now, not great against our deck because our deck tends to go wider than tall. But that's a very good card in this cube in general. So I got the Boros Reckoner. Could have been on the board last turn if I was paying attention. And got the Memory Jar, which would be nice to get the Memory Jar out at some point as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to port and be aggressive. And alright, so I'm going to attack here. I'm not going to port the Maze right now because I kind of want to do it next turn. Because this turn I'm probably going to play the Boros Reckoner, and then I'd like to be able to attack in with it next turn. And I also have the option of maybe tapping down a land. He is a little bit short on lands, so I could have been probably more aggressive with the port. But I'm just trying to do 1 damage here and basically keep my other flyer up as a blocker at this point in case I need it. He's playing black. He may have some removal and may have some shenanigans that act quickly. But right now he's only on 3 lands, so I'm not too worried. We'll play the Reckoner. That will set us up for a pretty big next turn. Now playing the port on his upkeep, this is kind of where we want to be going forward. We don't want to keep playing it on his turn. So we'll do that. We'll tap the Maze now. Another option is we could have been less aggressive and tapped a land, try to make it a longer game, but he only has 3 lands. I'm not too worried, and I like the fact that I just put out the Boros Reckoner, which can get around the Death Toucher with the first strike. So he tapped his land on the upkeep, but I'm kind of thinking... yeah, he's going to play that Bone Shredder. Well, he's targeting the Bone Shredder for a Murderous Cut. There you go. So he's going to get rid of that Boros Reckoner. So we're kind of back to where we were now. I mean, he kind of wasted, well, I don't want to say wasted his turn. It was a very good turn. But he Murderous Cut our creature. His creatures aren't doing much. Mine aren't doing much. And he basically passes the turn. So now I'm thinking... perhaps just getting Memory Jar out on the board as quickly as possible. I could still tap down a land. Now he plays an island, so now I got to start thinking about keeping off blue, because we haven't seen. He's got 4 cards in his hand we haven't seen. They could very well be blue cards. So he's coming in with a 1/1 Death Touch. That's fine. We'll take that. But that's just basically a free attack. But now instead of the Maze, I'm now starting to worry about that island. So I get more land. Starting to get a little flooded. I've been pretty well flooded since the beginning of this game, but we've had some good draws. So I'm going to get the Memory Jar online. Hopefully to have a big next turn with tons of mana. We'll get in for 2 with our flyers. Which again could have been 3 if I didn't kind of misplay that earlier. He's got a repeal. If he's using a repeal for 1 flyer, 1/1 flyer, I'm very happy with that. Repeal's a very powerful card. Can really mess you up. So I'd rather see it used in that capacity. So now obviously I'm getting less aggressive and I'm just going to start getting a little more grindy. Let's pull him off that blue mana. And I get another Plains. Alright, so I'm going to use Memory Jar here. Good time to use it. I have plenty of land. So hopefully I'll be able to pull a lot of those small creatures, throw them down on the battlefield, and kind of move on from there. And we find, well, probably not the best time to find our Armageddon, but it's an option. Unfortunately, we don't have enough land to make a big enough splash where I'd feel comfortable playing the Armageddon. But I don't know. Put down maybe the 2/2 double striker, give something else double strike, and Armageddon could have been an option, but if he can get rid of it, which he could do as an instant, he's got plenty of mana up, that would be a very risky move really for no reason. So instead I'm just going to go and try to get as many creatures out as I possibly can. Start off with a Fiend Hunter, and I take away the token even though I know he's going to get another token on his upkeep, but my plan is to also get rid of the other creature. I'm playing a more safe game right now. I mean, I could have tried to throw down the double striker. He's just got so much mana open. I'm just worried I'm going to waste this turn by playing things that he could destroy. So instead, now what will happen if he kills the Fiend Hunter, he doesn't get anything back because I got rid of the token with it. It's going to be harder for him to remove the Oblivion Ring. I'm more playing around terror type effects, so that kind of gets rid of his creature, and I'm going to play Hanger back, so at the very least, if he can destroy that, I still get a 1/1 flyer. So playing very conservatively here. He's just got too much black mana up that I don't feel that comfortable in throwing too much out on the board and taking a big risk like trying to play Armageddon. And he does have something, as you see here, and it's a Dismember, so that was the right thing. We definitely played around that very well. Hangerback Walker, he was afraid of that because that could get big. Totally get it, especially if maybe he has Damnation in his deck and he wants to be able to deal with this now and not later. But it does give us a 1/1 flyer, so I'm not sad about that. So this is a very productive Memory Jar turn. Still not doing a whole ton of damage against him, though. I mean, look at our board state. I mean, he's got nothing but land in the maze. We just have 1/1s and a 1/3, so we're not burning up the house here or anything. And unfortunately, we kind of lose some of our tools with Armageddon. But we have Sun Titan. Sun Titan's going to let us take a 3 or less permanent, put it back into play, which could be a number of things. I mean, we now have the Soulblade Paladin, we have Boros Reckoner, we have Burmaz. Tons of stuff we can pull with this Sun Titan if it can stay alive long enough. But at the very least, we should be getting one thing out of it, as long as it doesn't get countered. Now he does play a big card here with Dragonlord Solmagar. He's going to be able to steal something from us. Now, we don't really have anything really great to steal, but with that Maze of Ith, any little thing will give him advantage. Just thinking about what to take here. And at this point, I think our opponent actually disconnected again at one point, and I didn't notice when that was exactly, but he's actually down to under 7 minutes now. We're still in game 1, so it's not good for him. I think he's been having some connection issues. You know, some of his plays are a little bit slow too. So this is a pretty big play for us. We're going to get Sun Titan, and we're going to get something else out of it. The only land he's got up is the Maze, which does not tap for mana. Alright. I guess short of a Force of Will, we're going to get something. We have enough mana to play around Daze or Force Spike. Well, we can't play Force Spike, but Daze. So just kind of looking at what we have here in the way of permanents. A lot of choices, tons of choices, and I'm trying to get pretty strongly aggressive here. My thought is if I could give the Sun Titan double strike, then I don't have to worry about the death touch on Dragonlord Solmagar. So that's the play here that I go with. Still playing up against black though, so nothing's for certain. I mean, he could destroy one of these cards pretty easily. But this is a pretty big turn. So he gets more land, but he's got 3 cards in his hand, so yeah, figured. Ultimate price. He had to have something, right? I mean, he's playing black. So, still got some value out of that Titan. And the next creature we play can be bonded with the Paladin. Not a great turn for us, but alright, so we get more planes. Now we're starting to get really mana flooded here. But again, we are at game 1. He's got under 6 minutes on his clock, so at this point, he would have to wrap this game up pretty fast and beat us in a second game pretty fast. So I'm starting to get more aggressive here. I'm going to tap down that island. Force him to play any instance, and he doesn't have anything, but he does play the plains, which is interesting. And now maybe we know where some of those white cards went to as he plays a Banishing Light. So he could potentially have some Mother Runes, Lingering Souls, almost certainly in his deck, I bet you. He probably has the perhaps the Swords of Plowshares, Path to Exile. So very interesting that we see a plains at this juncture. And maybe he was holding it for a while. He might not have wanted to show us the plains, considering the fact that he thought he still had enough time for a game 2 and perhaps to win. But at this point, he may be resigned to the fact that he probably isn't going to be able to pull out this game in another game. So it's a big swing for him. Banishing Lighting the Oblivion Ring gives him basically 2 creatures. And now here's a good one for us. Mirror Crusader. Pro Black and Green and Double Strike is pretty awesome. Not going to answer everything, but not bad at all. And also can turn the Double Strike back on for the Paladin as well, so we'll do that. And it gives us protection against that Death Touch. It's not such a wall anymore. Like I said, it's normally a very good card in this cube, just not great against our deck because of our first strike, double strike abilities, and we're going wide and not tall. So here we go. We'll come in with 2/2 Double Striker. He has the option to block it, but at the same time, he's got to think about his board presence right now. He's reaching the 5-minute mark on his clock. Looks like he's got a response anyway. Just Maze of It. Okay. I could have tapped down the Maze of Ith, but I think it's better, quite honestly, especially considering the time situation, to just use it to keep blue or white tapped down. Probably blue. I'm a little more afraid of blue. I think that's the right move here, because, yeah, we might be able to win faster if we can get some hits across with, like, the Paladin there, but at the same time, we could lose the game if he pulls out a huge blue spell. So I do go ahead and hit the maze this time and not the island. So I guess considering he only has 2 cards, I'm taking a little bit of a risk here. Maybe that was an unnecessary risk, but I also may feel that in 4.5 minutes, there's not a whole lot he can do anyway. So I am trying to get a little more aggressive here. And we are against the Dragonlord Solmagar clock a little bit too, so you do have to take that into consideration. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. But I could see an argument for doing either pulling him off the blue or tapping the maze in this example. But alright, Wrath of God. So, well, that's a thing I could use if I get too low on life. And it's a little bit of a panic button again. It's pretty much guarantees us a game win at this point, considering he's almost down to 4 minutes on his clock. So I'm going to attack in with my heavy hitters. He will block with his 1 creature that can block the Crusader. So he's going to take the 4 from the Paladin, which pushes us both at 10. So he'll be able to if he wants. Oh, he's got another play. Okay, yeah, Hero's Downfall, that works. Very removal heavy in black. He's got a lot of it. So keeps himself safe, keeps himself at 14. His plan at this point might be just to get there with Dragonlord Solmagar. I'm going to continue to just be aggressive, keep that maze tapped down. Because at this point, unless he plays something else, I'll definitely be getting in for 4 with the Crusader. Which on its own I can't win that race, but I do have Wrath of God. And again, it works perfectly because if my Fiend Hunter dies, he doesn't get anything. I got rid of the token with it, and not the actual creature last time. So I'm chomping a little bit here. I'm starting to think, yeah, I'm probably going to be in a situation where I'm going to have to use the Wrath. And there's John Finkel. So the last thing we want now is for him to start drawing more cards. So this is perfect. I actually have enough mana to pull this off. I can just Wrath of God and Wormcoil Engine. So I'm just going to attack in with these guys first. Make him make some plays. He's going to have to take the 4 unless he's got removal or something. White removal. So now we're both at 10. It's turned out to be a very scrappy game. It's really too bad our opponents had the connection issues. So I would have really liked to have played out a full game 2 here. We're going to Wrath. This puts him in an awkward spot because now we're going to play the engine. If he can get rid of it, awesome, but then we're still going to get 2/3/3s out of the deal. Puts him in a real bad spot. He's down to the 3-minute mark here. And he scoops him up. So there you go. Won game 1 of match 2. He's got 3 minutes left on his clock. So we go to sideboard. Eventually. Magic Online. I mean, really no sense in really considering a sideboard. But if I was going to do it just for the drill, I don't know if I really have anything to put in, quite honestly. I think our deck was pretty good against him, as is. Don't need to really transform anything. This is the thing with our sideboard. I mean, other than maybe getting rid of an enchantment, we're a pretty transformative sideboard. He just initially concedes as we go into game 2. So there you have it. It's match 2, so we're 2-0. Next video, we'll play match 3 and see if we can get there. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon.